Equipped. This is a takeover. This is something that the other person on this screen and I have been wanting to do for years. And we're here, Charlie, on this fully equipped takeover. Myself, Johnny Wunder, and the great Charles Howell III. Charles, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm a little bit excited, a little bit nervous on here with you, and we've had this thought, as you said, for quite some time, and now it's time to see what we can do.
It's time to see what these gear dork stallions can. How fast can we run? How deep
Eh,
can we go? And how nutty can this get? So, um, you know, I don't even know where to start. I had a list of things that I wanted to talk about. We're going to start here, Charles. Um, let's just start with our gear dork history,
Okay.
together and individually. So I want to ask you first, where did your love of equipment start? Like, what was the first moment you're like, okay, this equipment thing's kind of for me too here? Like, explain that to me.
Ooh. So it goes back a long time. I started the game when I was 7, and but when I was 11 years old, I became really serious about the game. And my dad, we practiced together. We learned the game together. My mom and dad would drive me down to Orlando, Florida, as much as they could to get golf lessons from David Ledbetter and his assistants there. And when we were going down there, we were exposed to some pros. Nick Faldo, David Frost, Nick Price, Dennis Watson, Mike Holbert, all these guys, and they were all messing with obviously their golf swing, number one, but also their equipment. And I always saw, be it Nick Price or Nick Faldo, whoever it was, with a couple sets of irons, different drivers, whatever. And I'm like, man, that's interesting. What are you doing here? Why are you doing this? Oh, well, this can affect this, and we're messing with this. And so it kind of got us thinking of like, wait a minute, is there something to be had of an advantage in that realm, in that space? Like, what is it?
Right.
So the best way you find out is you start doing it. And boy, did we make a lot of trips to Edwin Watts. For those that have been to Orlando, Florida, you know where it is on Turkey Lake Road. And this is before the PGA Tour Superstore days. So this was
Right.
Edwin Watts and Nevada Bob's days.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
And yeah, so it was in the craze then was the Callaway Big Bertha driver. Okay.
Yes.
And if you got a really good one, it was the Ruger titanium one. Okay.
Yeah.
And see, you remember, and
Oh
then
yeah.
it became the biggest Big Bertha, and then and all this. So honestly, we just started messing with a bunch of drivers, the Yonex, the ADX 100, and the ADX 200,
Yeah.
and it's what we did. And so obviously, the priority has been okay. Your golf swing. What are you working on? What are you doing? But how can we, from an equipment point of view, what advantage can we get from this? And that's how it started.
I remember, because you and I have talked about this at nauseum, but I remember the first time that I saw you, which was the Pumpkin Ridge
Mm,
USAM. And you were probably 120 pounds. You had goggles on, you were all, no fear hat
yep.
on, and you were dialed.
Yep.
But at that
Yes.
time, which was interesting, you had Callaway Woods and you had Ping iron. I think you had Ping I2 irons and the Ping B60 putter with about 9 pounds of tennis tape on
Yes.
it. And I,
Yep.
I just remember, that's kind of when I started following you. I was like, who is this kid? And then I found out you're going to Oklahoma State. And you're still AJGA boy at this point. And
Yes.
it's funny though, and in some of the conversations we've had, and another friend of ours, Nico Bellini, who
Hmm.
we talk a lot about the old days, about the glory days of equipment, like, and one of the crown jewels, if we're going to talk about that time period, was if you rolled up to a driving range and you had a set of copper Ping I2s with G Loomis shafts, or if you had the Yonex Tours, or if you had, I mean, I could go on. If you had like a Ram bore through 3 wood, or if you had a Marlin
Yes.
3 wood, or like some Ram Tour grinds, I mean, you're dialed. You are dialed.
You are.
So,
Yes.
um, so what I want to ask you, back in that day, did you have a coveted set? Like, did you have the clubs that you dreamt of, or was there always a bag that you're like, if I had a couple extra bucks, I want that set? Like, what does that look like?
So It's okay. A bit of a complicated answer. I was always a ping guy growing up.
Hmm.
Um, I grew up in Augusta, Georgia. There was no real attachment in that area. It's like I grew up in Scottsdale. But it was always ping. Okay. And it was the ping I2. And then it became this wild, crazy set, the ping zing. Okay.
Okay.
And then it
Yeah,
was the
that was
ping. And
awesome.
then, right. They were great. And then
Lee
the ping
Westwood made
zing
those things
2.
look like the greatest things ever, by the way.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And then I remember the having the True Temper EI 70 shaft in them, the green one, the kind of the
Yeah.
dark green.
Yeah.
Like that was the set.
Right.
It was always the Callaway driver. It was a Big Bertha, what was it, the biggest Big Bertha after that, and all that. But it was always ping irons and wedges and putter. And I think ping, with their product cycle came out, this is the cool set, this is the next cool set, this is it. I remember when then the ISI came out, right? The ISI
Hmm.
nickel, and
Those were
that was like
sick.
the set.
Yeah,
Oh
those
my
were
gosh,
sick.
yes. So I was always in that, ping family. Through David Ledbetter and my exposure to his academy, that's where Callaway came in. David has been a longtime Callaway staff member, and my first endorsement contract as a professional was with Callaway Golf. And man, it was awesome. I mean, Mr. Callaway was still alive. Arnold Palmer had just recently signed with Callaway. Gary Player, like there was a lot of positive momentum and energy. And Mr. Callaway was, he was awesome. I mean, he loved the game of golf. He loved thinking outside the box with his equipment. The golf ball had just come out then, the Rule
Right.
35.
Yep.
Remember the red and the blue?
Oh yeah.
So I think, yeah, I was always kind of a Callaway or Ping guy. Um, Not saying those were necessarily the best or not the best. It's just kind of all how it worked out.
Right. So the funny thing is I remember because I followed you closely. Like once you got to Okie State, like I remember when it was. I remember the whole story about you and Coach, where he's like, if if your scoring average is under 69 or whatever, you can use a set of
Yep.
Callaways or whatever. And I think it was the X12 Pros. I think was the first kind of set
Yes,
that
it
you put
was.
into play. And I
Yep.
remember though when you won NCAAs, and I can still picture you in my head. You had like your Nike socks pulled up. You were like the first guy that I saw out there with like, tennis socks on. And
Yep.
I remember watching it with Nico Bellini. We were actually watching it with Nico, and you had a full set, like 2-through pitching wedge of the I3 blades. You had the ping
Yes.
driver. And then you
Yep.
literally went out the week after NCAs or 2 weeks out, you went on a Corn Ferry event, shot like 23 under and finished second, I think.
Hmm.
And then
Yep.
I think you had a couple of good starts on the I think it was the Nike tour or whatever the hell it was back then.
Yes.
Um,
Yep.
and then you signed with Callaway. And
Mm.
oddly enough, I could still picture it in my head. You were the first person because I think they were coming out. It wasn't ERC, but it was like their new driver. I forget what driver it was. The one that came out in like 2000 or 2001. You were at
Yep.
the RBC Canadian Open and you were testing a prototype of it for the first time. You're the first guy that
Yes.
had it in the bag. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yo. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna pivot into where I'm going with this here for a second. So one of the things I've always loved about you and our friendship is, I think we've probably been buddies now for 5, 6, or 7 years, maybe. And whenever we podcasted at WRX.
Mm.
But one of the things that I really love talking to you about is you are a tester. Like you have your bag and you kind of
Yes.
protect your bag, but you love knowing what's out there. So
Yes.
talk to me really quick just about your testing. Like how do you test gear? I mean, what are you doing to figure out if a club's going to work or not? I know the answer, but like let's give the people an insight of what's going on.
No. So okay. So I've long said one of the biggest advances in the game of golf from today going forward is club fitting. There's
Hmm.
no question about it. And we'll start, and then we'll go off all kinds of places. But we'll start here by saying I play a True Temper Dynamic Gold X100 iron shaft. Okay.
Right.
I play it straight in. At times in my career, I've played it tipped an inch, tipped a half. I've played hard step, but right now it's straight in. Why do I use that shaft? I don't know. Partly is because it's True Temper, right? And they've,
Right.
quote, always been good.
Right.
Another reason has been, well, Tiger Woods used it and he beat all of our tails with it. Okay, that's
Right.
partially true too.
That's a nice
Um,
reason.
it is a great reason, right? And if we could play half like him.
Yeah.
But then but why are you using it? Like what did you go through to say that this beat out a KBS, beat out a Project X, beat out a Nippon, or anything else you want to throw into it? We really don't know. And I still think there's a certain element of guessing. Okay. And that element of guessing, that gap there is what fills a lot of people like my brain and your brain of I have to test it then.
Right.
Because I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if there's a possible way to throw sensors all up and down a shaft and how I load the club and what my transition looks like. In that day, am I swinging well or am I swinging differently? Or in a tournament under pressure, am I going to swing differently and load this thing differently? So this shaft may be good for me at home, but it's no good in a tournament.
Right.
So all these things cycle and go through my head, which leads me down these rabbit holes or whatever, Johnny
Yeah.
Wunder holes of testing stuff
Right.
because you really don't know until you know.
Right.
And now the hard part in golf for everybody is you don't really know until you get on a golf course in a tournament or pressure ish type situation to see does it perform.
Right.
Because everyone listening to this podcast knows there's a difference between the driving range and the golf course and then the golf course under pressure.
Right. And
So,
that's what we've
and
learned a ton over the last to get collectively, we've both known this, but we've figured it out for you specifically. There is a huge
yes,
difference between Isleworth driving range and then getting Charlie out at live and banging balls around, right? It's a huge difference.
oh my gosh. And I think it's for everybody. And I think that's where, you know, the other side of the testing coin is that golfers are so good now. The level of competition is so good. It is very, very hard to get an advantage anywhere.
Right.
Okay. So
Yeah.
if I say now I work out, well, congratulations, everybody works out. Okay. I have a golf teacher. Well, great. So does everybody else now.
Right.
Like I remember people thought I was crazy when David Ledbetter was sitting on the driving range with me at tournaments. Oh, Charles, what are you doing? This isn't the time for a lesson. Why is your golf teacher here? You're too complicated. You're too over the top. You're too mechanical. Now everybody has a teacher.
Right.
I mean, think about how that shifted, right? Like I remember there was a day like Tim Tebow, for example. Like, why does he struggle at quarterback? Everybody on TV said, "Oh man, his throwing mechanics need to get better." Have you ever heard a commentator, anybody say on TV, a golfer's mechanics need to get better? No,
A million.
they've said, "Oh, never heard it." They've said, "Oh, they choked, or they
Right.
got nervous, or they just hit a bad shot, or whatever." I've never heard them say, "You know what? He is a good player, but his mechanics need to get better."
Yeah, there's only two I
Okay,
can that come to mind would be Johnny Miller and Brandel Chambly are the only people that are picking golf swings apart.
okay, there you go, perfect.
Right.
So now imagine like where we've come in golf with teachers, with every type of TrackMan, Foresight, Flight Scope, you name it, plus all the 3D technology, right? Gears, AMM, whatever. It's very easy now to see what's going on.
Right.
Okay. So the gold is how do you change it? And then is there an advantage to be found in equipment? Can equipment make you swing better? Can equipment make you swing differently?
Right.
Can equipment take your bad or off days and make it better? That's what leads me down the holes of testing stuff, be it shafts, heads, centers of gravity, whatever it may be.
Right. And you'll test. I mean, the cool thing with you is, and this is why this has been fun with you is, and Rocco's a little bit like this too. But like you'll try anything once just to be able
Yeah,
to check off that box, right? And I think having an open bag now
sure.
allows you to kind of go out and hit some stuff. The only, I guess, and I'm the same way. The only problem with that now is you might absolutely roast something one day and then try something else and kind of forget about this other driver. Now you're on to this one, and this
Mm,
one's good. Then I get curious, and it takes me a week to figure out if this one's good or bad. And the hard part is
sure.
they all kind of net out the same. And like one thing I'll say about all the equipment that's out there right now, for the most part, it's all like 9.5 out of 10. I mean, there's nobody makes duds anymore. It's all good stuff. I
No,
mean, wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. And I mean, you can't go and fault Callaway, TaylorMade, Ping, Titleist. Like none of them, they all make great stuff. Okay,
Right.
they do. So, but I think they also have their biases as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that really matters. Okay. And so let's say, for example, man, the TaylorMade, the whatever driver was a little bit more fade biased.
Right.
Okay. Or let's just say Callaway, for example. Let's We're going to say the Triple Diamond is a little more fade bias than the Triple Diamond Max.
Right. Which
Okay.
it is.
And, which it is.
Right.
And that's important. That doesn't mean Callaway, it doesn't mean every Callaway driver has to work for me. It means they have to make a range of drivers that fit as many people as possible.
Right.
So so the goal then is to have a fitter or someone helping you to say, actually, Charles, listen, the Triple Diamond you are not going to like, because you're going to
Right.
push cut this thing one time and you're going to chew the grip off of it.
Right.
But the Triple Diamond Max, you're going to like that, because if you push one, that thing's going to kind of hang in there and go, ooh, it really did. I like that.
Right.
And see, that's where equipment really can make a difference.
Yeah.
Obviously, I play on Live now, and my captain is Bryson DeChambeau. Now, you want to talk
Jeez.
about some equipment rabbit holes,
My God, man.
but oh yeah, it's awesome. But there's a couple things. Number one, he's trying to get better.
All
He's
right.
trying to do everything possible that he can do to get better. That's number one. He will not leave a stone unturned. I promise. I've witnessed that.
Right.
Um, but number three is he actually likes to feel, you know what? If I do this, or this club is this way, I have an advantage. And
Right.
he plays better golf because of it.
Yeah,
No
it's
doubt about
funny.
it.
It's funny that you say that. So like one of the questions that I've asked a bunch of players now. So like say for example, Charlie, you are say, for argument's sake, your path is maybe 1.5 out and 1 up, right? If you're with a driver, just for
Okay.
argument's sake. And if that's the swing that
Okay.
because you use TrackMan, you use quad, you use them all, right? And for different
Yep.
reasons. So the goal is, and I've talked to Bryson about this a little bit. The goal is to be able, like, if I have a launch monitor out and I make that 1 out, 1.5 up, or 1.5 or 1 up and 1.5 out golf swing, the ball should be right there when I do it, right? Like I should hit it
Yes.
out of the middle and it should go right there. The problem that
Yes.
I shouldn't say the problem is what you and I are starting to figure out is you're kind of there all the time. Like you're not, if you're swinging bad, you're not that far off. Is
Mm.
you guys are so good, and this is the difference between a consumer like myself and a professional like you. You guys are so good that the equipment tolerances, the performance tolerances are like that big, right? So
Mm.
like you guys are becoming more predictable than the equipment is in a weird way. Where like
Okay.
I know if you hit 100 balls with a driver, your delta for path and for angle of attack is going to be like maybe half, maybe 1
Okay.
up to, it's
Yep.
it's not going to be much, but the
No.
disparity between the shots that you hit based on the club that you're hitting is going to be a lot wider than that. So
No question.
that's where it gets interesting, and that's where I think some players ignore that altogether. Like, I don't want to know. I just need something I like to look at. I want to hit it on this line, and it goes out there most of the time, and I'll figure it out with my wedges. It's kind of like the
Yes.
other equipment strategy, which I put
Yep.
more like on the Scotty Scheffler spectrum, which is and Sam Burns, guys like that. They're just like, I don't know, man. Most of the time, it goes where I'm looking, so I'll figure it out from there. Um,
Yes.
but do you think? I guess the point to this is: do you think that with all this technology and TrackMan and Quad, um, do you think it's made it overly complicated? Do you think the reliance is too much on that and it takes some of the player out of the equation because you have that feedback of those numbers as opposed to what the ball's doing in the air?
I think data is important. Okay. So everything in life, we're trying to acquire more data.
Right.
Okay. Whether it's your financial advisor in investing, whether it's the guy flying the airplane that we're going to get on and go to a tournament next week. Okay. Data in and of itself is never a bad thing. It's what we do with it. Okay.
Right.
And so if I have as you said, Scotty Scheffler and Sam Burns mentality of, I kind of like the way this thing looks. Most of the time it cuts when I want it to cut. Let me go play golf. Man, awesome. Power to you. If you were
Right.
wired that way, and Scotty Scheffler has had one heck of a career, well, so has Sam Burns.
Right.
Man, go for it. Go at it. If you're not wired that way, which I'm not, I can't be that person. Like I can't do it.
Right.
I can't. Now, I wish, I mean, there's so much about, let's say, a Dustin Johnson that I envy.
Right.
I envy the fact he can look at a driver and say, this actually looks pretty good. Watch this, 330 right down the middle. Okay.
Right.
And there's so much of that that I envy. I can't be that guy. Now, I think so with foresight, with TrackMan, and all this, all those tools should help us. They should never be a hindrance. Knowing what's going on and what we're doing should only be a help. So I would encourage every golfer to go that direction, to look that direction, because it can only help. Okay.
Right.
Um, I will never shy away from that. Now, where you can get into trouble, and we've all done this, is you see a number or you see a pattern you don't like, and then you go about changing it.
Right.
Now, when you figure out how to change it, that's the hard part. That's where you can go down rabbit holes, you can do whatever. However, it's not the data's fault. It's you taking that data and trying to do something with it.
Right. Yeah, and it can get confusing. So we're gonna move on topics here. I do got to do a quick read though for our sponsor, Golf Pride. I want you all to meet Align Max, which is the newest addition to the Golf Pride family. Raised ridge technology features a higher, longer, and firmer ridge. Actually, Charlie, you play the Align grips. That runs the full length of the grips, 25% higher ridge than original Align. So, Charlie, you're missing out by 25%, according to this read.
Yes.
Maximum
Yes.
consistency. It's a revolutionary raised ridge. A raised ridge fits into the hand's natural contours, which, to be honest, Charlie, it feels like, remember those old Bun Hogan grips that he used to put the coat hanger?
Oh
That's
my
kind of what it
gosh.
feels like. I've
Yes.
had it in my hand.
Yes.
If you have any questions, go to
Yep.
golfpride.com to learn more about Align Max. And God bless Golf Pride for sponsoring Fully Equipped and giving Charlie and I a place to babble. Okay, so we're going
Yes.
to get into your bag a little bit. And the fun thing
Okay.
about this, and hopefully we'll be able to do more of this, and we'll do a little bit more back and forth. But right now, this is kind of a Charles Howell interview, a little bit. We're going to talk about your bag a little bit, and
Okay.
what you've tested, like what's close to getting in the bag. So right now, drivers Triple Diamond Max, which is not out yet in the marketplace, but you got your hands on one. Is that is that in the Ping kind of battling it out still? Like, let's talk about driver first.
So since I've been on Live, I've played the Ping driver. And right now I've got the 440 LST in the bag. Um, the triple diamond, so the Elite Triple Diamond Max is a phenomenal driver as well.
Right.
If I were to like right now, if I were to tee up right now for my life to go play around the golf, right now I'd play the Ping. The Ping is kind of my security blanket, right? It's my safety
Right.
blanket. The driver that is the best, right there with it, better in some areas, is the Triple Diamond Max Elite.
Okay.
Um, Now I like to draw the ball. Okay. I always have. I don't like seeing a ball fade. I don't like seeing a ball cut. My miss, I still want to see this ball somewhat drawing. Okay.
Right.
The Ping, the newest Ping, the 440, and then the Triple Diamond Max, both are easy to draw for me.
Right.
So that makes a big difference there. The Callaway is a little bit faster than the Ping. Okay, I don't think anybody's going to be really surprised by that.
No,
The
that's their
Callaway,
platform. Yeah.
right? The Callaway's a little lower spinning than the Ping. So and I don't think anybody's really surprised by that. It's kind of like, what do you want? What do you want out of your driver? What can you manage? Um, Golf is changing though, in that we've seen these, two woods or mini drivers, kind of come out because so many holes are bunkered, and this 280 to 300 range has become really important. So with either mini drivers or these lower spinning hot or three woods, it's kind of left room for, hey, I need my driver to be as hot as possible.
Right.
And if you want evidence of that, go to any professional event, Live, PGA Tour, it doesn't matter. Watch those guys' ball speeds. My ball speed when it's warm and I'm playing is around 180.
Right.
Okay, which is not slow. It used
No,
to
it's
be
still humming.
fast,
It puts you in the
but
top. It would
it's
put you in the top 30 on tour.
right. But you're like, it's 180.
Right.
Like, I mean, I've seen Bryson 195 comfortably. Okay.
Right.
This Joaquin Neiman is very fast. So Brooks is fast. So For me, I walk that line of, man, let's have enough of a lower spinning 3 wood where I can get this thing at least 280 off a tee, and then let's make our driver as hot as possible.
Right.
Um, that's kind of where I sit on things.
And you're still Ventus Black 6X. I think what I don't remember what
Correct.
we sent you, but it's 45 and tipped an
Yes,
inch or whatever.
45.
And yeah, and
That's correct.
you've been in that shaft for a while. The thing that's
Dude,
cool,
quite a
I
while.
think, what I'm noticing with you and in ping drivers, or like I'll call it like a higher MOI low spin driver, which is kind of a weird thing. This is kind of an anomaly, but
Hmm.
or oxymoron. But I've noticed where you get tricky, I would say from a fitting perspective, is most drawers of the ball like yourself typically hit up on it a lot more. Like Bryson, for example.
Okay.
Bryson hits up on it 4 or 5, right? And
Yes.
to he gets the ball to curve basically on his path on the way up, where you're more of a trap
Correct.
drawer, like almost like a pull, like I don't want to call it a pull draw, but like a trap draw. So
Yes.
you're not, so you need a driver that spins, you need a driver that's stable, and you need a driver that doesn't have any right in it at all. Because what's going to happen for you is
Yes.
you're going to make that 1 out and 1.5 up golf swing, or what the hell we're calling it. And
Yep.
with a triple diamond or a TaylorMade LS or one of these lower spinning platforms, you might pound it. You might actually be faster on the way out, but the problem is there's not enough spin on it to make it curve. So
Correct.
that's where, like, so if, for the people listening at home, the reason why Charles' path to a draw is actually the old school way of doing it, which is kind of a trappy draw. I call it like a Jesper Parnevik draw, or like a Jay Haas
Hmm.
draw, like where you're kind of zeroed out, or you're kind of hitting down on it with the face
Yes.
on top of the ball. So now let's get to really quick. You mentioned mini driver. Um,
Hmm.
have you tried a mini driver? We've never really even talked about mini drivers. Have you tried one yet, or do you have any interest in that at all?
No, because I've gone the direction I played the Ping 3 wood, their LS 3 wood,
Mm-hmm.
which is a crazy low spin 3 wood,
Did you
which
get
is
are
awesome.
you in the 430 or the 440?
I'm in the 430. I
Okay.
liked it a little better than the 440 on the 3 wood. Um,
Okay.
but it's that 3 wood. I spin that 3 wood between 31 and 3400 off a tee. So
Perfect.
it's a lower spinning 3 wood. It can still go. Um, I still like that because I still want to be able to hit that into a par 5 and 2.
Right.
Getting it around the green. I'm not worried about necessarily holding the green, but just getting up around the green. Then I also play a 7 wood, which is kind of come back in guys' bags now.
Yeah, there, like,
Um,
bro, there was 37 seven woods at Innisbrook last week. 35 or 37 seven woods in it. Like, just a wild number.
I believe it, and unless you're someone that hits the ball really high, I really don't see a need to have your longest iron longer than a 4.
Mm,
It,
I agree.
though, as low as golf balls spin now, as good as 5 and 7 woods, and even some hybrids are. I'm not a big hybrid guy, but is as good as 7 woods are. Let's say, I don't really see the need for, unless you hit it really high, like let's say a Justin Thomas
Right.
or someone of that nature. You don't need longer than a 4 iron.
Well, let me ask you a question. So I was at TPI last week, and you and I talked about this already. But one of the things that they do, um, they fit to a peak height. Like, peak height is their North
Okay.
Star, right? So like they want your 7 iron and your driver to basically be at a peak height, and then they build the rest of the bag around that peak height, right? Which I think for me was like
Okay.
105 feet, because to the way
Yep.
that they calculated is peak height is basically a good guesstimation of how fast you swing it and how good you hit it. So if it's a quality
Okay.
strike and you're fast and you can get it to 105, that's a good number. So like for you, like with a 7 iron, what's peak height for a 7 iron for you? Between, like, I don't know, like it's got to be under 100, isn't it?
It's between that 95 to 100 range.
Okay,
Yes, right in
so
there.
it's close to mine. It's not crazy high. It's not
It's
crazy low.
close.
It's kind of right in
No.
the middle. So so like the irons that we got, yeah, the Apex TCBs that you're in, I think you're still hitting those. The cool
Yes.
thing with you is also, I see where the ping influence is kind of, and even the old school Callaway stuff, how it's kind of crept into your kind of your bag. Like TCB would be an offsetted tour cavity back. There's plenty of offset in those things. So like, where
Yes.
do you stand on offset? I mean, do you like seeing a little offset? Do you like, like, where do you sit there?
So having grown up on ping I2s, I've always had and played with some amount of offset.
Right.
Okay. As I got older and turned pro, I thought I didn't. I thought offset was not not ideal, not good. I don't know
Probably going to
why I
make
ever
you think
thought
you're going to
that.
hit it left because that's what everybody's. That was always the curse of offset is better players like I'm going to hit this thing dead left, and it's like, well, are you
Well,
though?
and I almost think better players end up pushing it when they see too much offset.
Right.
Because I mean, I don't want this thing to just push this ball. I think, but what I've learned is, especially through testing the TCBs, some of the PXG irons and whatever, I need some amount of offset.
Right.
I almost think everybody does. I don't, and also the irons I've seen, I don't know if you feel this way as well, with no or minimal offset, don't look great through the bag.
Mm-mm. They
They
get
don't.
because you have to make compensations somewhere. So like, and we're gonna do a little segment after this one about what we've hit. Like, have you hit this, and what do you think? But
Yes.
as it relates to, and I've talked to Rocco about this, and I've noticed that all the drawers of the ball love to see offset. What I think is with
Yes.
some of these irons, I don't think there's enough offset. You know what I mean? Like ping I2s, I mean that blade, the blade of a ping I2 was all the way behind the shaft. Like it was back there. Like it's in the back seat, right?
Big time.
And
Maybe
let
too much, but
yeah,
yes.
yeah, maybe too much, but that would be the extreme version of it. But I think somewhere in the middle there, even for tour players, is a good spot because the one thing with offset, and you'll get people in the WRX forums or any of these forums like, oh, it's too much offset. And the one thing I always say is I've never seen a player ever, literally, that's a good player that plays clubs with offset. They all hit it really straight, or they all hit this really beautiful little draw, like they all do. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do with when you find a club that has like almost onset or face progression or whatever the hell you want to call it.
Hmm.
I just don't see the quality of shot being as good unless you cut the ball, unless you're trap cutter. Then it kind of makes sense. But like if you're trying to hit it straight or with a slight draw, you need that. You need a little bit of offset to make it work. Like if you watch Xander hit balls, you would think he played with like Justin Thomas blades. He plays with the same irons you play, and it's got plenty. You set it down, it's got plenty of offset there. He doesn't bend them weak to make the offset go away. They're just the way they are. So it's
Yes.
cool. Yeah. So like I remember a part of your career. God, this is like maybe mid 2000s, and I think you and I talked about this before. But you remember that time in your career when you went to those Hogan blades? Remember when Callaway bought Hogan, and you
Yes.
put in a set of blades, and I think it was when
Yes, I do.
I don't know if you were working with Will Neal at the time. I forget what teacher you were working with, but it was a Ledbetter guy, and your swing plane was getting pretty shallow. So you went to like
Yep.
more loft in your driver. You went to some blade irons, and
Hmm.
so the point of me bringing that up is like when you're earlier in your career, how much influence did you have on the myths of clubs? Meaning, like better players play with blades, and having not having a lot of offset is what all the tour guys do. Like, how much of that? How much did that influence you? Like all the range chatter.
Oh my gosh, a ton. I always thought, man, better golfers use blades because when I grew up, I saw Nick Price hitting the Ram Tour grinds that were
Those
about
were
that
so
big,
sick. Those are so
right? I
awesome.
mean, and then Nick Faldo playing blades and David Frost playing blades, and these are the guys I was first exposed to. I think then I was also told, well, ping wedges are good, but man, if you're really good, you'll take a forge wedge and grind all the bounce off of it,
Right.
right? Another really, really bad idea. Um, the other one was, man, great putters putt with an 8802, right? It's
Right.
got a lot of swing in it. You can feel the face. Probably a bad idea as well, unless you're Phil Mickelson now.
Right.
Um, so yes, I think those myths came in. The cool thing about where golf is today, those by and large are gone. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
there's more guys playing cavity backs than blades. There's more guys using big old 460cc driver heads now than ever.
Right.
There's graphite shafts and irons out there.
Right.
Okay, so there's people are using bounce on the wedges and saying it's good. Those myths are going away. That's where I love where golf is today. Everybody's trying to find a way to get better.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I mean, I say this in videos all the time. I mean, tour golf, and I learned this literally on tour from guys like Kellen and Johnny Thompson and, being around those guys.
Hmm.
Tour golf, tour fitting is built around raising your floor. It's got nothing to do with your good shots ever. Like, I've never heard any one of you
Ever.
guys ever walk on a truck. I want to hit it further. I want to hit it maybe higher sometimes. But for the most part, it's always about mitigating the miss and it's always spin management, constantly spin management, start line, and mitigating the miss.
Yes.
That's all tour fitting is. So when you
Yes.
see those tour reps out on the range and they're working with a new driver, maybe not a new driver, but if they're in the middle of the season and they got a bunch of clubs out, they're trying to solve a
Hmm.
miss problem. Period.
Yes.
Like they're not trying to make them faster.
Correct.
They're just trying to like keep the reservation from burning down, essentially.
Yes.
Um, so do you have like fitters, like, when you were on tour, did you have people from staffs that you really liked working with? Like, who did you respond to? Or was there like one fitter that you just kind of relied on during your career? Like,
Oh
even
my
before
gosh.
you met
Yeah.
me, I
So
mean,
yeah, before I met you, no. So in Callaway Golf, there was a rep there, Joey Sprayberry,
wow,
and
dude, that's a blast in the
he
past. Okay.
he was awesome. He was the best. We got along great. He understood me. Um, we could have these type talks and conversations. We could have conversations such as, man, this 7 iron I hit on one hole, it pitched this. There's no way it could have pitched that far. What's going on here? Is it the spin of the ball? Is it whatever? Is it, this? Well, I guess back then we could play whatever groove we wanted. Is it the groove? Is it whatever? Is it the shaft? How I'm we I always thought it was my fault, any bad shot, and I still
Right.
do. Okay. So let's get that out there. I went down the equipment to find an advantage, right?
Right.
So when Joey and I would have these conversations, it would be, man, Charles, went Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm watching on the range. You're launching this driver up at 12 degrees. This is awesome. Man, you go out there and get nervous on the golf course and you're all on top of this thing and you're launching this sucker at 8. Like,
Right.
we need some spin. We need some spin on this head, Charles. It ain't going to look good on Tuesday, but it'll look really good on Friday.
Right.
And so it was things like that where Joey and I could have a running dialogue. It wasn't just a once off. It was always, hey, where you at? How's it going? Whatever. And to your point on tour fitting, and this almost needs to be a bit for everybody. You just want your bad shots better.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody's good is good. Okay. I mean, pick a name, any name you want. They're good's good.
Right.
And if you're on the PJ Tour or Live, you can win. Okay,
Right.
so your good is good enough. It's just how good's your bad, and that is a huge part, I think, of the future of club fitting.
Yeah, I think the good fitters on tour, and they're. I mean, if you get to that level and you're on a truck, you're doing some good shit, right? Like it's not.
You're very good.
Yeah, you're very good. And what I've noticed is
Yes,
all of them, to a man, all fit or all work with players thinking 3, 4, 5 days ahead. Like, okay,
yes,
when Kellen's working with Rombo, for example, it's the session, but it's also knowing, okay, Friday when you guys tee off, Rombo's always super jacked up on the first tee. This is a brand new driver. I have to make sure that I'm overshooting the mark maybe on start line or spin, because I know when he gets jacked up, this ball's going to start 5 feet this way and spin 500 RPMs more because he's going to hit down on it. He's
yes,
going to go all silverback on it. And so Kellen's good at,
correct.
these guys are good at thinking about all that stuff. And that's why I've always been a big advocate. Like, if you find a good fitter, same thing with a teacher. If you find somebody that you like, that's your person. Like, you're constantly going back to
Yes,
that. So you have one variable that's always the same. And
yes,
that person will fail you sometimes, but that's why it's a relationship, right? It's always back and forth.
yes,
Together, you're going to make mistakes. Together, you're going to get it right, really right sometimes. But ultimately, like, that reference point, that North Star is always going to stay the same. So I always get confused when people go from fitter to fitter to fitter to fitter. The reason why on tour, why all these guys work in pods, is so that the player rep relationship stays the same constantly.
mm,
Like, they
mm.
become a team, and it really works out that way. Let's get to your wedges really quick, and I want to ask you about something. So wedges, I think, are you in Opus, or are you in the Vokey still?
I'm in the Opus 52 and 56, and
Okay.
then the Ping 60. It's just that's just a visual preference for me, a bounce preference on them. Um, wedges, I think all lofts on wedges should be set to how far you want to hit them out of the fairway.
Right. Yeah.
And you know this, I want 130 yards out of my 52 degree. Well, I've got to make it a little under 51 to get that. Okay.
Right.
So Nick, my caddy and I started, how far do we need this ball to go? Let's just get the loft there.
Right.
Okay, so I would encourage people, don't get hung up on what loft it's supposed to be or your gaps. Get the number you need. Okay, so that's where I'm at with the wedges. I play a little more bounce, as you know.
Yep.
I don't mind bounce. I like it around the green. If I get nervous and uncomfortable, I'll just get that 60, get the heel off the ground, and hit this thing off the toe.
Right.
So bounce, I don't mind. I think most people can benefit from a little more bounce than they believe.
Yeah, you said something pretty cool. I actually brought this up in an article like last week. On tour, another thing is everybody backs into the loft through carry distance, right? So like
Yes.
you take Phil's bag, for example. Phil's 5 and 4 and 5 iron part of his bag. It depends if the hybrid's in, but like if he has a 4 and a 5 iron, his 4 iron might be 22 degrees and his 5 iron might be 22 degrees. It doesn't matter to him.
Yes.
Like he doesn't care about the lofts of the clubs. It's you know, they all have a job in that section of the bag.
Yes.
So that's another thing that people get really held up on is the lofts. Like, well, this is 18. I need an 18-degree club. No, you need a 220 club. You need a 215 club. And they might
Yes.
be the same loft, but it doesn't matter. Like, just the club's it's all about carry distance, especially when you get to 7, 8, 9 pitching wedge. When you get to
Yes.
that moneymaker part of the bag is when, you know, you really want to back into the loft. So it's cool that you said that because I've said it a million times and people look at me like I have two heads. And I'm like, well, that's how they do it on tour. So, okay.
It,
Announcement today, which I
yes.
thought was pretty
That's really
cool.
important. So go ahead.
It's huge. It's huge. And it's just another myth that
Yes.
you battle against. You know, it's like you and I have talked about fade bias drivers. Everybody thinks a fade bias driver has to have the face 2 degrees open and be, you
No.
know, super low spin with a stiff shaft. It's like, no, it actually, the face needs to go the other way. And, you
Correct.
know, you need spin, you need all these things to make it. Like if you go look at Dustin Johnson's driver or Freddie's driver, you set it down and the face points at your left shoulder. So,
Correct.
okay. So another person that you and I are close with made a really cool announcement today. Roger Cleveland, speaking of wedges, I don't know if you saw that, but he is back with Cleveland Golf as of
No
today.
way.
They announced it today. I talked to Roger today. He's in Huntington Beach. He's
No
coming
way.
back. Yeah, dude, he's coming back to consult on their wedge program, kind of like bookending his career. And I'll text you the video, dude. The Cleveland Golf put out this video, Charlie. Like it gave me goosebumps. Like, and I called Roger. I was
That's
like, bro,
cool.
have you seen the video? They make you look like a god. Like it's him at his house,
That's
and like they
awesome.
show him shuffling through old 588 wedges, and dude, it's the sickest video I've seen in a long time. But like, I didn't know if you knew that,
Oh,
but
that's
like, huge
awesome.
announcement.
No.
Yeah, just
Well,
just to,
Roger, well, so when I was with Callaway, Roger was there
yeah,
at Callaway, and we spent a lot of time together, not even just on wedges, but also irons. I mean,
right.
how a club interacted with the turf, how it went through the ground, he was brilliant with that. Brilliant.
How speaking of this really quick, and we're going to move on to the next topic, but another thing that I've been kind of saying for the last couple of years is I think turf interaction is more important than anything on an iron. Like, and the reason I say that is like super game improvement irons, for example. Like if you look at them, they have really low CG. They're built to get the ball up in the air, but the soles on them are like this big, right? So essentially,
Yep.
you're asking the player to hit driver off the deck like 30 times around. Like they can't get him into
Yes.
the turf. Like I could hand a 25 handicapper a Ram Tour grind, and they're going to hit it better. At least the strike's going to be better than they would if they had a super game improvement iron, because they're getting the face on
Yes.
it, right? How important?
Correct.
How important? How much attention do you pay to the sole?
Everything. And
Yeah,
I tell you why. It's because, when that the way that thing is going through the ground, and as golfers, we feel, man, that got stuck. Or wow, that got in and out of the ground really easy. How this thing's going through the ground and where this face ends up pointing for this ball start line is everything.
right.
When you look at irons, I mean, we discussed offset, that matters. I think heel to toe length matters,
Huge. Yeah,
right? Which kind of affects CG and all that. but I also think, man, their soles. I've always been intrigued by the soles on the Strixon irons. That's been something I've never really gone down that path, but their soles and how they do them, I've always been intrigued by those.
That's literally the next topic is a little segment I'm gonna do called "Have You Hit This?"
Okay.
But really, and I'll call you on this one. But I had a really interesting conversation with, remember David Edel from Edel Golf? You ever
Oh,
met
yeah.
him?
Yes,
He's a
I
wizard.
have.
So we talked about
Very
blade
smart.
length and the, what that looks like, like a long
Yes.
blade length, and how those, the faders love those and the drawers like the shorter blade
Yep.
length, and we'll get to that in another conversation. Okay, we have 15 minutes left. There's two things left to cover. So I'm going to give you three clubs, and I was going to ask you about Strixon. You just told me you haven't hit it, but we're going to do have you hit this, and what do you think? So
Okay.
LA Golf Driver just came out 2 days ago, yesterday,
Yes.
2 days ago. Have you hit it, and what did you think?
So yes, I have hit it. The At first glance, when you look down on it, it's awesome looking.
Yep.
It's very normal, traditional shape. The bulge and roll looks awesome, makes it look extremely square. It sits on the ground nice. I thought it was a very good, very stable driver. Now, I've hit a lot of iterations coming up because Bryson's involvement with them.
Right.
And to what I believe, the latest iteration is easier to draw.
Okay.
So because of that, I'm excited to hit some of the newer ones, but I think there's a lot of potential in that driver.
I think that, and I've actually talked to Kellen from Callaway a little bit about this too. Like, I'm a big advocate for what Bryson's trying to do, and someone's going to nail home that idea. Now, Callaway's doing a
Yes.
version of that with AI. It's just a different way into the same
Okay.
thing. But I think the
Yes.
bulge and roll thing on the face, especially at a tour level, when you guys are so finicky about start lines and miss start lines, I think
Yes.
there's something there. I just don't know exactly what it is. But when you have a driver that you can hit out of the toe and it starts right and falls right, and you can hit it
Mm.
out of the heel and it starts left and goes straight, for you guys
Yes.
out on tour, like that's a gift, I think, because most of the time, you hit one out of the heel, you're expecting it to start left and just kind of spin to the right. But what I'm
Yes.
noticing with a lot of you players, especially on tour, like the optimal miss with a heel shot is left straight. Like, I just want it to go that way and stay that way, and I want the toe one to
Yes.
go right and kind of fall right. Is that
Yes.
pretty accurate? I mean, do you think that there's something there?
I definitely think there's something there.
Okay.
I think what we have to figure out now, I've been privy to a lot of the stuff via Bryson and testing some with Jeff Meyer, who's great, by the
He's a
way,
smart boy, yeah.
is he's very smart. Not all toe hits are created the same. Okay. So, for example, Bryson's toe hit, his path is, let's say, 4 to 6 degrees to the right. This is between, 3 and 5 up, whatever. So
Right.
his toe misses would really, really, really draw. Okay.
Right.
Like starting right of a fairway and just left turn blinker, go all the way across fairway left. Him having more of this bulge and roll is going to kick this thing more to the right, and it's not going to curve as much.
Right.
So for Bryson, it's awesome. And I see why and where he got there. I think the eventual place we end up is Charles. So my draw is going to be 1.5 path to the right, one up. So my toe ball is apt to hang more to the right.
Right.
I don't need my toe ball to go more right. So maybe
Gotcha.
the
Okay.
toe of my driver is designed different than the toe of Bryson's driver.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
That could go to everybody in golf. Joe Smith comes out there to hit balls and they get a face mapping of his club and a little bit of a conversation. What misses do you like? And they can 3D print his face, and then there's your face.
Right.
Like, how cool is that?
That's
Like, there's a
amazing.
lot of potential in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely something there. I mean, even crank drivers, the one that Bryson's playing
Yes.
right now is the same
Yep.
idea. Okay.
Absolutely.
The next thing I want to ask you about, I was going to ask you about the Strixon irons. You haven't hit those. I think you really like them. I
Yeah.
don't. I'm curious actually to see what you think of those. The next thing I want to know, like the TaylorMade drivers, the new ones, the QI
Yes.
35, like what in the new TaylorMade line have you hit?
So I've not hit one of them.
You haven't hit
I've
any of them.
seen the
Okay.
driver. No, I've seen the driver to set up to it. It looked beautiful. I love
Okay.
the gray look. It looked extremely square, but I had literally not hit one.
You messed around with TaylorMade drivers like 2009, 10. Like you did
I did.
the R9 thing for a little while, and you did the
The
R11
R9,
thing.
the burner. Remember when the burner came out and
Yeah,
it was the glued hosel and we were bending them flatter and open
yeah.
and all that. I remember
You had the
Jason
rocket.
Day made
You were a
that
rocket balls
popular.
guy for a second. In your Mizuno days, you
Absolutely.
played in Bridgestone days. You played some TaylorMade stuff. I remember.
I did. Absolutely I did. No, great company.
Okay, so nothing on TaylorMade. And then the last thing I'm going to
No.
ask you is, I just got my list here. Let me see. Like, what's a real banger question here? Give me a second. Oh, okay. Um, so you were a Mizuno staffer for a long time. When was the last time you hit any of the Mizuno stuff?
Since I left. I haven't hit it since I left.
You
Um
just broke up with them. That's
because
it.
yeah, no, exactly. No, no, no. They made wonderful stuff. And Jeff Cook, their rep, was awesome. He was great to me. I just haven't hit it. And the reason why I just once I go down that direction, I don't stop. And at some point in time, I need a bag put together to play a golf tournament with and not hit one slight overdraw and think, that's it. This other iron's coming in.
Yeah.
Um, it's, listen, the truest statement ever is it's a lot easier to change your golf club than your golf swing.
Right.
Okay. That will always be true. However, that may not always be the best.
Okay. Okay. That's a great answer. And the funny thing is also like
Uh,
once you start going down the Mizuno rabbit hole, like take Strixon out
oh
of
my
the
gosh.
Japanese companies, you start going down the Mizuno,
Yes.
then you get into the Miuras, and then all of a
Yes,
sudden
you
it's just
do.
like you're just not even in your body anymore. Like you're somewhere else.
No.
Like,
No, then I'm digging in Abraham Answer's bag of what
oh my
mirrors are
God.
these? They make cavity bags, they make blades. And I'm like, oh my gosh, now I'm in four different sets of mirrors. I know nothing about them. And then I don't like asking reps to build me stuff if I know I'm not going to use it.
Right. Right.
Like
Yeah.
I don't. That's disrespectful, right? That's just wasting. So, um, Sam Hahn and I have gone down some serious rabbit holes at lab, but I use most all of the putters. Okay,
Right.
I don't ever want to go. I don't want to ever order something, and I know I'm not going to use it. That's just disrespectful, and that's a waste of their time, and it's not right.
Yeah. They Speaking of which, actually, the last thing I'm going to ask you about, we're gonna do the last little portion of this thing is the Cobra drivers, the DS
Yes,
Adapts. Have you tried those yet?
yes, no, but I want to. They look
Dude,
awesome.
dude, they're sick. Like
Yeah.
they're. It's funny. We were going back and forth on TD Max and Ping, like the LST head. Their X head, which is
Yep.
the one that I think Ricky plays it, and I think Gary Woodland plays it. It's like their LS head's good. Like it's kind of like the TaylorMade. It's really solid and it goes far and does all the things. But like their X head, again, like TD Max is like a higher MOI, low spin head. Like, and it's
Okay.
really easy to turn over. Like,
Really?
it might be a Ben Showman call just to try it. It's a
Yes.
really
Oh, Ben will
really
love
good head,
this.
dude. Like I
Yes.
hit it the other
Okay.
day, and so far in like all the testing I've done, like I went to Titleist and I hit the TaylorMade, and I kind of hit them all the same. And even to this day, the Callaway one, oddly enough, because they make great drivers, has kind of been, it's
Sure.
been 1A the whole time. Like in numbers wise, it's
Understand.
just been it's been really good. But
Yeah.
I brought this Cobra one out, and they've all been really close, but that was the one I was just like, God, I don't know if I hit this one the best of them all. Like,
Yeah.
it kind of got, how we get, like, I'm sitting there just going, is this real? Like, is it this
Yeah.
good? So I'm kind of anxious to get it out, but we need to get you some Cobra drivers to try because Rocco hit it in Newport Beach. And you know
Okay.
him, dude, he's a psycho. He still plays the G400. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
he never gains anything with a driver. Technology does nothing for Rocco Media. Not a thing. He's
Okay.
145
Yeah.
ball speed. It carries 245. It rolls out 20 yards. It always draws. Like, it doesn't matter. Like,
Yes.
technology does. He was getting, this is the first time I've ever tested drivers with that guy where he got like 6 miles an hour of ball speed with his Cobra
Wow.
driver. Like, he was whacking this thing. The only thing for him, because Rocco's 150 years old now, is he's so used to seeing the ball fly out of this window. This ball was a little higher than he's used to seeing,
Okay.
and it just wasn't drawing fast enough. So it would go out
Yes.
there and it would kind of, I don't want to say it'd float left, it would kind of stubbornly fall left, where he's looking for it to curve,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you should try this thing, dude.
Okay. Hey,
It's a
Ben will appreciate this.
it's a sleeper. It's a serious sleeper. Okay.
Yeah. He'll say, thank you, Johnny.
Yeah. This is the last thing for this, and this is going to be both of us. we are going to do our all-time gear dork what's in the bags. Like of all the bags that you've had, driver through
Yes.
lobber, what's your all-time set? So I'll give you mine quickly. So mine
Okay.
is Great Big Bertha 7.5 with an RCH 36.
Okay.
I had an S2H2 3 wood, the little tiny one, the little friendly one
Yes.
that Duval
Oh yeah,
used to
yeah,
use
yeah.
with an
Yeah, yeah,
RCH.
yeah. Yep.
Remember the old Pro Series Callaway shafts? I really wish they'd come back with those, by the way.
Absolutely.
So I had that, and then I had 2 through 4 iron in copper Ping
Okay.
I2s with X100s,
Yep.
and then I had 5 through pitching wedge in 962Bs, which was the greatest iron ever
Okay.
made, hands down. And then I
Yep.
had a 54 degree the old black 588s. Remember those? They came out with a
Yes.
gunmetal
Oh
finish.
yeah.
And then I
Oh
had a
yeah.
60 degree Vokey 260 which is the same one that Stricker uses now.
Ooh.
And then I
Yes.
had I think it was the ISO. It was the DeMarco putter. I forget the name of it. It was like it's not
Okay.
ISO Force, but it was like the Answer I. I think it was the Answer I,
Yes.
which was, remember
Yes.
it had like the pixel
It,
face.
I do. Yes, I
Okay,
do.
that's my all time,
Yes.
and then all time ball is the ball
Okay.
I play right now, which is Chrome Tour Dot, which is my Xander ball. But that's my all time. I want to hear what your all time bag is.
Oh man, this is a tough question. Okay, I had the Ping ISI driver, but I talked them into painting it orange for me. So
What a
Andy
wild scene!
Solheim
Yeah,
was at Oklahoma State. We talked him into painting this driver head orange, which was phenomenal. The Graphalloy
yep,
driver shaft,
yep.
remember
The
that got really
Grapholite Pro.
popular.
Yeah,
Yes,
or the
Graphalloy
Tour,
Pro.
Grapholite Tours, the black one with the gold writing.
Sorry, sorry, that was it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Yeah,
Tour. The Tour X, yeah, and then you also had the Tour Double X. Remember that was a
yeah. That
board.
was yeah,
3 wood was the old Titleist PT. Remember that 3 wood?
yeah.
3 wood's gorgeous. It
Did you
sat on
ever
the
have a
ground,
nine? Sorry to
awesome.
interrupt. Did you ever have a 970? Did you ever get your hands on any of the 970 stuff?
Never did, never
So,
did.
so
No.
the PT3 was the one you're talking about, but then Larry Bobka, who I'm sure you know,
Oh
decided
yeah.
he was going to make one that looked a little bit different. It's the same thing. It's a PT13, but he put 970. That's the famous Tiger Woods 3 wood that he had
Okay.
forever.
Yes. Okay. Well, there you
Okay.
go.
Okay. Keep going.
And boy, he hit that good.
Yeah, he did.
The irons, no doubt, were the Ping, the ISI nickel.
Yeah.
Um, the ISI nickels were awesome. They were, man, they felt soft. That was in the day when Ping got criticized for not forging a club and they feel too hard and all that. Like these actually felt soft.
Right.
Um, wedges. Oh, the old Ping I2 lob wedge with that wide sole.
Yeah.
Man, I miss that club where you could in the bunkers and everything. And even Phil still kind of toys with that bottom, even
Yo,
now.
did you see the wedge that we talked about this before on another podcast? And I have pictures of it. He showed it to me. I was at Oak Hill 2 years ago for the PGA, and I'm walking down the range, and he goes, "Wonder, come here." And he got Garrett Pond, who I think you've met at Callaway.
Yes.
They started screwing up because Phil's always had a Ping I2 in the bag somewhere. He always brings it with him, right? Like he's always had a
Okay.
lobber. He
Yeah.
got Callaway to mill him a Ping I2. He's got a milled Ping I2 Callaway
Wow.
wedge with a full face. I'll send
No,
you the
that's cool.
pictures. It's probably a $30,000 wedge. There's only one of them.
That's
It's just
cool.
so anyway. Keep going. So
Wow.
Ping I2 lob wedge. What about the
So
putter?
yeah, putter the Ping B60.
Yeah,
Now you got to do different iterations of it or whatnot. You remember the one that had the clear face that had Ping written behind it in the face?
yeah,
Was it called the ISO Pure or
yeah,
something?
yeah,
I can't
dude.
remember now. Anyway, that one. That was I think that was my favorite one.
God, they should bring
Um,
that back. That was such a good putter.
Oh, it was a great putter.
That
And that
insert was
that B6 was
sick.
a little bit bigger and that insert, yeah. Because I've always liked the white hot inserts. Like for whatever
Right.
the feel of the white hot, that was very close to that. Um, but listen, I mean, you look at like gear in different, generations and times, right?
Right.
Where I think nowadays so many companies make good stuff, is you almost have to try more stuff now because you
Right.
can't
Yeah.
just wipe any you can't wipe anything off the board. You
Right.
can't say, oh, that's garbage, that's garbage. No, it's actually not. Like you really need to test it and try it because you may just find something. Because every
I agree.
golfer on here, that one club or that one driver that has been like, man, even if I make a poor ish swing, it's awesome.
Right.
And I think that's really, really cool.
And that's a fun thing too. And we'll wrap this up. I mean, I think the fun thing is with fitting and everything else. And like you talked about data, and we covered a lot of topics. But like if you can find really really good golf clubs. I think the hardest part now is because there's so much product hitting the market all the time. I will advise
No
anybody, and
doubt.
Charlie, you can attest to this. When you find a good golf club, keep it. Like keep using it
Keep it.
until it breaks. Like
You can go test new stuff, but that's your tip for the day. Always keep that one.
always keep the good stuff. Well,
Yes, sir.
so this has been something that Charlie and I have been wanting to do for a long time. We're working on some other stuff. If you guys like this podcast and you like the Charlie Howell Johnny Wunder combo, we might have something for you. We're talking about some stuff. So, Charlie, always a pleasure. It's just this is basically you and I talking on the phone, but essentially we're getting recorded. We're gonna put one of our conversations out to the world. But I appreciate you giving Fully Equipped the time today, and that was
Well,
fun,
thank
dude.
you.
Yeah, that was
Well, that
nice.
was a lot of fun, and hopefully don't get fired, and we can do more. And
Anything's
to all the
possible.
of the fellow yeah, to all the fellow golfers out there, keep playing. We all love the game, and Johnny, we'll do this again soon.
We'll do it again soon, and we'll see you. We'll see you in Miami. I'll be with you all next week, so we'll
See
be
you.
live and in person.
All right, we'll see you in
Thanks, bro.
Miami.
All right, guys.
All right, y'all have a great afternoon. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks.